The Psalm. Is that clear? The sum is greater than the parts. Don't lose your focus on salvation when it comes to the Bible. Don't get trapped by minute details. The old What's OT? It's not overtime. OT is Old Testament. She came from work, that's why. What's empty? New Testament. The Old Testament hides the New Testament. The New Testament is hidden in the Old, and the New Testament is revealed. I mean, the Old Testament is fulfilled in the New Testament. Number 8, do not read alone. Can you read it, right? Yeah. That's what happens to some people. They read alone. What the church is saying here is, you must read the Bible in the tradition of the church. You understand? That's what I do. That's why I always have the Bible in this. You notice that? I always have the catechism next to the Bible. Because I make sure that I don't read the Bible alone. I read the Bible in the sacred tradition of the church. So I don't get lost. Ask yourself, what is God saying to me? What is church tradition? Isn't this my question to you every time you meditate? What's God saying? Reading is not enough. You go to heaven if you read the Bible? I have news for you. You don't. By just reading the Bible? Reading is not enough. You have to act on it. You understand? That's why you ask yourself, what's God telling me? What's God saying? What's God saying? I have to read it and then act on it. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12. The best way to teach the Bible is to live it. It's not preaching like what I'm doing. And they will know we are Christians by our love, as the song says. If you do all great things, but there's no love, what are you like? What are you like? Singing simple, right? You're like a gong. There's too much noise, but empty. Because there's no light. let's get your materials quickly. Any questions so far? Okay? Makes sense? This, if you want to read the Bible, Mark is 10. The last thing I want to hear from you is, I'm Catholic, I don't have to read the Bible. You will put me to shame. Or, I get angry. Acts chapter 3, hear a man lame from birth. Look at the commentary, number 1. Number 1 tells us the hour of sacrifice. There's an evening sacrifice, which is from 3 up to dusk. What is dusk? Sunset. That's the second sacrifice of the day. The earlier ones begins at dawn, lasted until 9 in the morning. So around from 6 to 9. The second one is from 3 up to sundown. Number 2 is just for your information. Underline 3 to 8. The cure of this cripple was the first miracle worked by the apostles.
Which apostle did it?
Peter and John.
Who?
Peter and John. Remember they were on their way to the temple, and they saw this cripple on the side, begging for money. I have no money to give you, but you know what? I can pray over you, and that cured. It's a miracle. So Acts chapter 3 accounts for the first miracle of Peter and John.
Isn't before he sent the other 47 out? He was sent out a couple of them before, kind of wipe the dust off their feet.
Oh, that's way prior. This is after Jesus.
Oh, this
is after Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So again, you see here the power that Jesus has given the apostles. Next paragraph. The second one. These miracles in the New Testament obviously occur in situations where grace is intensely concentrated. I like the sentence on the 4th line. If we struggle daily to become saints, each of us in his own situation in the world and through his own job and profession, then I assure you that God will make us into instruments that can work miracles. That should be highlighted. It starts with these miracles in the New Testament, obviously. Yes?
What do you mean by Christian economy of salvation?
It means we do not have full concentration, but we are trying our best to live the life of a true Christian. So that's what I... Another man was dead, rotten, smelling like a corpse. He hears God's voice, as in the miracle of the son of a widow at Nain. Young man, I say to you, rise up. That's astounding, huh? Now, another part next to that should be highlighted. Miracles call for cooperation, faith on the part of those who wish to be cured. The lame man does his bit, even if it's only a simple gesture of obeying Peter and looking at the apostles. So that's crucial. If you want miracle, you must cooperate, you must believe. Remember Jesus in his days, your faith has healed you. That's how he puts it. Your faith has healed you. He even says in another part, he would say, remember the centurion from last week? The centurion? I haven't seen, and I haven't seen faith this great amongst the Jews. And yet he saw it with the centurion, who was supposed to be a pagan. He was a Roman soldier. Psalm 19. In one word, evangelize. Galatians 1, God's call. Who's talking here? I would have you know, brethren. St. Paul. St. Paul is talking. You see the wisdom? The first reading, you see Peter and John. Remember, this is the feast of Peter and Paul. So the second reading is by Paul. Paul is giving an account of his call from God directly. That's why Paul is also called the 13th apostle. You know that? He's also known as the 13th apostle. What shall I do, Lord? In Acts 22. That should be double underlined. What shall I do, Lord? Can you ask that question yourself when you go home tonight? Ask that question. What shall I do, Lord? Let him speak to you. What if you hear, you are my daughter, in whom I am well pleased? Remember, that was the question that Paul asked upon his conversion. Remember, Paul, even before his conversion, was so zealous, right? He was full of interest. He was full of enthusiasm. He was so full of life to defend the Jewish faith to the extent that he wanted to persecute Christians. And then when he was converted, he kept his zeal, but this time to defend the Christian faith. Commentary 15 to 16. First line. God choosing certain people for special missions when they were still in their mother's womb. Remember Jeremiah? God says, I knew you when you were in your mother's womb. In other words, Jeremiah was destined to become a prophet even when upon his conception.
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist the same way. In Isaiah 49, it says it. Luke chapter 1 with the Blessed Mother. Where's the account of Paul's conversion? Acts chapter 9. When Paul was converted on the way to Damascus. Gospel, John 21. Simon, son of John, do you love me? You notice I didn't talk about it because I talked about it before. That's what I mean when I say we can do the same gospel, but I say different things. I dwell on different aspects of it. Let's move on. Inspiring article. This one was written by a bishop. New life, new realism. Jesus calls us to the truth. He is from the Father, and the life and love He shares with the Father. He shares with us the Holy Spirit, and this is the cause of our hope. Remember in 1 Peter chapter 3, I was quoting that earlier, when at any time you must be prepared to give explanation of your hope. That's what this is. 1 Peter 3:15. And that hope is this. The first paragraph of the inspiring article, written by a bishop. Now, I actually wrote this during the time when whosever friend that he is, Mr. Harold Camping, was insisting that the world would end May 21. Wow. Some people were anxious.
Now it's really going to end October 21st.
Oh, come on.
He had a stroke. Now he can't talk anymore.